Brexiteers have ridiculed Brussels' attempt to bully the UK, after the EU threatened to sue Boris Johnson for trying to take back control of Britain's borders in the middle of the Brexit transition phase. Brexiteers have ridiculed Brussels' desperate move to control Britain, and urged Boris Johnson to stand up to the EU bloc. This comes after the EU threatened to sue the UK if Boris Johnson exempts travellers from France and Ireland from a 14-day quarantine. The UK-French deal sparked fury in Brussels, which insisted Britain must also extend this offer to the bloc's other 26 countries while it remains tied to EU rules during the Brexit transition phase. Boris Johnson last week announced a blanket 14-day isolation period for all travellers entering the country to stop the spread of the coronavirus from overseas. However, following an emergency phone call from Emmanuel Macron, the government agreed to strike a deal with France which will exclude their citizens from the mandatory quarantine. European Commission bosses reacted furiously to this news, reminding Britain that it remains subject to European courts during the transition period. They even signalled they are prepared to wage a legal war and haul the UK before the European Court of Justice if it does not give in. A Commission spokesman told the Daily Telegraph, if there was a member state that was discriminating and was not in line with EU legislation, the Commission would intervene. In response, several leading Brexiteers have ridiculed this threat as a desperate attempt to bully the UK before Britain leaves the bloc. Ian Duncan Smith said, "So what? We make the judgment about what works for the greater safety of people in the UK, not them." Another Tory MP Steve Baker added, "It is time for us to stand up for ourselves and do what we think is right. People wanted to get Brexit done. They will be surprised if the first time we try to take back control we end up being sued." Speaking with RT, former Brexit Party MEP Robert Rowland thinks this move will trigger a hardening of relations, and make a no-deal Brexit more likely. Mr. Rowland said, "We are still a part of the EU. But we have a critical juncture coming up on 1 July in just 6 weeks when we have to either extend or continue with the existing timetable." He added, "It's interesting that the EU has decided now, despite all the crisis going on and priorities they should be setting for the pandemic, they've chosen to start a fight with the UK. This is essentially over the UK taking back control of its borders and not letting the British government decide who can be let in. The EU will act and start infringement procedures, but this sets up a fake fight and one where they will have to back down because they have so many other issues to deal with. We are seeing a reassertion of sovereignty in a global pandemic like this and a failure of multilateralism like that of the EU."